Hello and welcome on this tutorial on how to set up transaction tracking emails, which are the automated emails that are sent from Magaya based on several configurations and actions. So let's begin with some of the basics uh, settings related to this specific plugin. So here under maintenance configuration or options configuration, which is exactly the same route, we can find transaction tracking. In my case, in my favorites, maybe you can find it down below here in the other settings. And then let's begin by explaining the basic configurations here. So of course, first of all, enabling the feature. After enabling the feature, then you can decide by default what is going to be the system's behavior, meaning in what type of transaction you want the system to send emails from, right? For the case of freight forwarder, usually the most common ones are going to be cargo release, invoice, pickup orders, quotations, both shipments, warehouse receipts, right? That's like the most common ones. Now, there's something really cool about the latest versions of Magaya, and it's that it allows you to choose an email template per type of transaction, meaning, for example, the cargo release, you maybe want a different wording, structure, or design. You can select a specific email template for the transaction, for the cargo release transaction. And then for invoice, you want a different email template, and then so on and so forth for every single type of transactions. If you don't choose any, then the system will apply the default email template that you define down below. So let me save these changes right now and skip a little bit to the email template so I can explain better. So remember that in Magaya, the email templates are a great option for you to customize whatever you want to say on an email, right? Like, of course, the system has a transaction tracking email template by default, which is pretty simple. It's pretty much there. And those blue fields are actually dynamic fields, meaning they will take the name and number or the value of the transaction they are sent from. In this case, let's suppose we send this email from warehouse receipt. So it will say transaction, warehouse receipt, in the number, right? And then here under the system recipient name, it will say the customer's name, then we're processing your transaction, blah, blah, blah. Of course, you can customize the wording, and then it will send a URL for desktop, a URL for mobile here, and this one for Express Link if you use it, right? But we can always customize any of these templates. As you can see, they are assigned to a type of transactions. Sometimes you can create something very specific for a very specific transaction type. Like in this case, we created this template for a cargo release just to test. Or, for example, we added one that includes an HTML code that displays an image, or even a more complex one, an email template with an HTML version of an email signature. And you can make any of these texts dynamic, meaning they can grab consignee names, billing clients, pieces, ports, values, amounts, any value that belongs to a transaction, you can generate it and program it into the body of an email so that when you program or assign that template to the messages that are going for each of these transactions, it will pretty much write the email for you. It will compose the email and you don't have to type anything. That's the whole idea, the whole point of automating this process, because by having customized email templates, then you'll be able to just hit send or not even worry about that, because you can also let the system send it automatically, and you will be sure that the messages are correct. I will try to see maybe we have something already created, because we don't use this a lot really. So let me see. Yeah, this is like the standard email template actually. But as you can see here, it was sent to Innovo customer and it automatically assign the name Innovo customer after there, right? And depending on what it was sent from, you can customize more things, right? You can customize the subject, the body, you can customize a kind of tables, you can do several things and on those email templates, right? So let's skip ahead again. Let's go back to configuration. Let's continue with the recommended configurations here for the transaction tracking plugin. So send transaction tracking emails for warehouse receipts created in the reception process on incoming shipments. That means one thing is creating a warehouse receipt from scratch or from a pickup or from a PO, and another whole different story is creating a warehouse receipt from an incoming shipment. Sometimes, especially you guys who import stuff, you can grab a shipment, right, that is coming to your warehouse or to any of your locations, and then you can, as soon as the shipment is in transit, then you can create the reception process. And what this will do is it will create a warehouse receipt for the whole thing, right? So let me demonstrate that. So you will receive, are you sure? Yes. So now this is linked to our receipt that the system just created automatically. You see, in this case, it actually created three because I had three houses, right? So it created a warehouse receipt per house, as you can see. So that's what that setting means. If you also want to notify customers when receiving shipments and converting them into warehouse receipts, which I do recommend, especially for importers. All right. So that one I would activate it. Then allow viewing details of related transactions. So let me just send an email out of one of those shipments that I just showed you, so that you can better understand that. So a transaction tracking email is sent out of a transaction, of course, like a shipment or a warehouse receipt or a pickup order. And usually Magagia transactions are related, right? Like in this case, we have a shipment, right? But the shipment is also related to this warehouse receipt. So if the shipment has events, which it does, and the warehouse receipt also has events, which it should, okay, none here. Let's go there and add one. Then let's say warehouse, right at warehouse, something like that, right? Let's add that one. And then let's manually send a transaction tracking email. So we don't have any customer or anything like that. That's why it doesn't show any email at all. So let's do any of this. Doesn't matter. So I will send in the default template, I will send an email. Okay. Then I will see in my sent folder how we should have, there it is, right? So we have a sent email now, and that email has a URL, of course. So I'll open that URL in a web browser for you to see what I'm talking about. And then there it is. So, okay, so here's my point. So as you can see, even though I send this link from a warehouse receipt, and that's what it's showing, right? It's showing a warehouse receipt. On the tracking details, you will see how we only have one event for the warehouse receipt, but we have all the events for the related transactions. So what are the related transactions in this case? The shipment where this warehouse receipt was created from, which means the house, and also the master, because the master related to the house. So in this case, it's showing me also events from the master. The big difference is you can click on the warehouse receipt, which is where we already were, but you can also click on the shipment. So it will take us to the shipment, see? But for the master, because this client is not related to the master at all, because on the master is usually just agents, then you cannot click and go there to see anything, right? So that's the first thing. Let's go back to my guide and let's continue. So that's a very important one. It's up to you if you want the user to have that visibility of related transactions, because they can also click and go there to see more detail, right? Like if I'm on a warehouse receipt, but I want to go to shipment, and I can go to shipment, no problem. Now I am on the transaction tracking URL of the shipment, right? Which, even though it might be different, it's a different type of transaction. So that's number 1 or 2. Then show charges. That's a pretty important one, because sometimes you don't want your customers to see any charges at all. Why? It's not that you want or not your customer, it's actually maybe you want to protect your rates and privacy, because sometimes you can, your customers might share this URL with someone else, right? At the end of the day, this is a public URL. They can share it with anybody. They can open it in incognito mode. They can just forward that URL or that email that the system automatically sends to anybody, and then they will be able to see the charges. As you can see, applicable charges just appear right here. So they will know that you're charging 15.10 and a cartage fee and all of those things for, this many kilos or volume kilos or whatever. So that's up to you. I do not recommend it. So you will see that as soon as I save the changes, removing the charges, and I refresh the URL, the applicable charges disappear. You just have the message, but not the charges. Okay, so that's good. Then enable transaction tracking widget and live track. This is kind of a software, a web development tool that will allow you to customize like a little widget on your website where your customers can create stuff. So let me show you how that works. Let's use my network ID 37370, and let's suppose I will enable a quotation. I will enable, of course, warehouse receipt, and I will enable shipments. So that's it for now, right? And then it generates this code. So this code is implemented on a website, and when you customize the colors and everything, the system will allow you to do something like this. Let me show you from a customer's website. I know some of them have that. Let me see. Which is a little like form, you would say. Yeah, let me show you this on my own website here. 1 second. Okay, so this is what I was talking about. This is my own website, and a kind of a test website that I created just to demonstrate how the widget works. So you can use this in your own website. The Magaia, this tool gives you like the configuration and creates a code for you, so you can use it and embed it in your website. So for example, I created I have the shipment. So your customers can come to your website, look for shipments, paste the airway bill or the number, and then they can just click on search, and it will open up this window, which is exactly the same window that we were looking at right here, except they don't need to wait for an email, or you don't have to send anything. They will just have access to the basic information just by searching on your website, just as you would do with UPS or FedEx or those type of platforms, right? Of course, This cannot be customized. This is pretty much what it is. That's how the system works. Okay, so that's this enable transaction tracking widget. That is the widget. Okay, this little function here, as you can see, I have quotations, I have receipts, I have other stuff so that customers can just try and play around with and look for. Okay, so yeah, that's, and try to look at anything else. Okay, 133. So it's another shipment, and as soon as I hit search, it opens that shipment, right? So that's about that. Okay, so that's a widget. Again, optional. I like it. It depends on you. Now require login would kind of contradict the whole point about having an easy access, but it's still up to you, because remember that your customers can have not only transaction tracking and receiving emails and a URL, but also a live track user, which is password protected, right? It's like credentials, it's user and password. So if you activate this option, then your customers will no longer be able to just open a random URL. The system will prompt them to log in first, okay? That's the main difference. I don't know if that works for the widget only. I think so. Looks like it's no longer working. Remember that Magai is also sunsetting some of these features. So maybe some changes might be undergoing that we don't know about, right? So we need to be careful. Yeah, apparently there's kind of an error here when you now enable this required login. So let's forget about that one for now. And then return only XML. That's a little bit more of a kind of a developer type of thing. We use it a lot. We use it a lot at Innovo, but that's pretty much because we use those XMLs to transform it into something more customized. And it will be just a piece of code like this one that you, of course, will not understand, but that we transform into maybe an Excel file or maybe a PDF or a better looking and more customized type of code. So because we don't need that, so let's forget about this option. Never, ever engage it. Then tracking language, of course. And then this one is pretty important, the transaction tracking email settings, meaning how do you want the system to behave in terms of sending out the emails? So you want it disabled? You want it to ask before sending? You want to automatically send the emails and just don't ask just because you already set it up here and define for which ones it is going out, then you can just rely on that and tell the system, okay, just send me emails, okay? And then we have a very important one, which is the trigger transaction tracking emails by event only, okay? This is super important. Why is it super important? Because usually you don't wanna send emails automatically just every time you modify something, which is what the system will do if you don't have this one engaged. So in summary, I recommend that you do this one only, okay? Just that one. But it requires a little bit more configuration also from the events, but let me explain to you why that is important first, okay? So let's suppose we have a customer. Let me change the customer here so that we can have somebody with an email. Let me see who has an email address here. So that one doesn't have any. This customer, okay, this new client will have an email address. Let me use my own email address. So we have sent emails to a random guy here. My email address. Okay, so we do have that one. And now let's make sure under customers, there's new clients, that this guy has the right configuration. So you right click a customer, you configure transaction tracking, and then you have the default configuration, which is the one that I just enabled there. right? But you can also never send emails to a customer or customize the behavior for this specific customer. Maybe the default one is not enough. Maybe for this guy you do want a couple more things, right? And then engage it. Okay. So I'm on a shipment right now. Let me go back to configuration and then let's enable as before. Okay, so I'm going to do that, and then I'm going to set this shipment as in transit, right? So that was a change right there. If I refresh and leave, nothing happened. Okay, hold on. That was supposed to be the shipper here. Oh, sorry, that's right. Ship. Okay, so we just modified the shipment. And see, what did I miss? Oh, sorry. Yeah, so there was no email template. So let's just use transaction tracking email template. Email template, save, back, and let me just do, I don't know, let's change something here. Let's suppose this January 6th, right? Oh, I cannot, sorry. So this is supposed to be 12.62, and then let's increase one day. And that can be done from the house. Sorry about that. So it has to be done from the master. Go back. And then I don't know, let's add a charge. No, it's already liquidated. Let's add an event. Let's add whatever. Okay, I'm sorry. Let's remove the only trigger by tracking emails for now, because I just want to demonstrate how the system would send an email just by modifying anything, right? So I don't know, I will remove an event, just that. And then when I refresh or try to leave the shipment, the system automatically opens up a window, right? It's trying to send an email. It's up to you if you send it or not. And that is because we have, you see, I try again and it sent again. So it's because I have the ask before, but also because I do not have the only trigger with events, okay? So that's why it is attempting to change, to send emails for whatever reason. Like if I change the status of this to arrive again, there it is, another email, right? So imagine if I have it to automatically every single time you try to do or you do something, the system will just send it, right? So the customers will be annoyed because they will be receiving too many emails. That was the point I was trying to make. Now, if I enable only trigger transaction tracking by email events, then we have to be careful with the event definition, right? Remember that we can create as many events as we want to, right? Some of them, not all of them, but some of them can be automatically created every time something happens. And actually, the system already comes with a bunch of them automated by default. Like, for example, in transit, if you set a shipment in transit, this event will automatically be created. You don't need to worry about that anymore. Right? I will demonstrate that in a second. It will be included in tracking by default as well, meaning the customer will see it on that URL, right? Like the in-transit events will be there. But this event will trigger a transaction tracking email is not engaged by default. So that's what I'm doing, and that's what I recommend. So you will be selecting what events should trigger an email, right? So that way you make sure that only when those events are added to a transaction, they trigger that email, either automatically created, which is of course ideal, or manually created, because you can always do, I don't know, pre-alert receive. It's a manual. There's no way to to tell the system create this event when something happens, right? Because there's no pre-alert, something here, nowhere. So it's gonna be manual, but still, even though it's manual, you want it to be included in the tracking and you want it to trigger an email, okay? So let me demonstrate those two. Let's go back to that shipment. So let's get rid of all these events just to demonstrate on this house. And let's put this back as in transit. Okay, so what just happened here? It created an event, right? There it is. Okay, hold on. I forgot something. In transit. Okay, yeah, it's supposed to be triggered. Let's leave that. Let's put it as loaded again, right? Back to loaded. And events, now we have the in transit events. Let's remove it. Let's go back to the master. Let's remove everything. And let's put the whole master as loaded. Okay, great. So now let's go back to the house. And just the house, let's set it as in transit. Are you sure? Yes. So it added an event, right? And because it added that event, it's not working. This thing is supposed to be marked right here. Now, let me double check something. How many in transit events do we have? Just one. Okay. Rename it just in case there's kind of a delay in the configuration. Let me remove the in transit again. Refresh. Let's leave that. It's weird. It's adding it when I remove the in transit. You see, that is suspicious right there. Again. And then in transit. Yes. It's now there. Okay. For whatever reason, it's not triggering the email. This is supposed to be marked like this. And then whenever you add that event, it will send the email, right? That's how we configured it. It's just not working. So one more time. Transit. Okay. Let me do this and close and reopen. Okay, so let's recap about the transaction tracking emails using events. Okay, so in the event definition, I just created an in-transit event, a new in-transit event, just to test it out, isolated. I told the system, every time a shipment is set to in-transit, create events, including tracking, and trigger an email, right? So this goes linked to these settings right here. I had it in automatically sending, it was sending all those emails. As you can see in send, that send folder is full of emails, so it did send them. But if I put it to ask before sending, then let me show you how that's gonna work now. Of course, the idea of using this only trigger by events is being able to automate and not even worry about sending the email. However, I will demonstrate it with the system alerting about that. So let me put this back as loaded. Let me remove these events and then refresh. So nothing happens here. So as soon as I put it as in transit, yes, we have an event, right? And also I have a network sent to day from 31, we went to 33. Okay, so it did send those separated emails to each specific customer just like that, right? So yeah, that's how it happens. So only by events. So that's how you define them right here. You have to determine which ones you want to use for that purpose of including tracking and automatically sending trigger emails. And that's pretty much it. So just to close the topic, it really depends on the volume and the type of customers that you have. But if the purpose of this is being able to select which customers you want to send emails to, then what I recommend is not enabling anything here, right? Nothing at all, just so the system doesn't send any emails at all to anybody, right? You keep all the other um, configurations like that. And then if just some of your customers need to receive something, you make sure you engage this configuration in a customized way, not the default way, because the default is now empty, in a customized way, and you will choose per customer exactly what you want to notify them about, right? That's it. That's what I would do, right? So this will guarantee that every time something happens like this, for example, I write a notice, include tracking. Let me try to select something that has, yeah, this one that does have the transaction tracking email option, right? When I do that, then I will make sure a new email is going just to that customer. As you can see, the other entity that we had here before, which was, I think, Innova as an agent, you see that it was sending two emails every time, and that is because the default included this agent. But now that I changed that configuration, it only includes the client that I decided to enable those emails for, right? So again, it's up to you. I'm just giving you all the resources, the possible combinations of three main things: email templates, events through the event definition configuration, and of course, instruction tracking emails based on events or not, right? Which I do recommend. And of course, using the email templates from Magaya. That's pretty much it. Thank you so much.